Welcome to the Silverlake Priestess Podcast. I'm Jaime Black. I'm here with Rosa Pullman. We are here with you tonight. We're going to talk about music. We're going to talk about all kinds of cool stuff. Welcome.
Yes.
And if this is your first time tuning into the podcast, this is a place where I interview magical people, and I interview musicians and witches and priestesses and psychics and mediums. And so we have all kinds of interesting conversations about how the artist path and how the spiritual path really blends together, especially in this day and age. And so I really have the honor of getting to interview so many friends and people that I know. And it's been new lately that I'm really bringing in like all of my musician friends. And I'm like, okay, I'm totally going to have Rosa on the show. So welcome, my witchy sister. It's really nice to see you.
So good to see you.
Yeah, so I was just thinking, I'm like, wow, so when did we meet? So Rosa and I met at a show that we were playing together, the Ed Matuzzi put on in that little cafe. I don't even remember what it was called, but there's like a little cafe over by the Hudson Theater in LA. And I was performing, and your cousin Mesa was performing. And so anyway, it was just like a cool little, night with candles, and we all got to sing. And then you just kind of like joined with her and sang a couple songs with her. And then you sang one or two songs on your own. You played some piano and you played a guitar. And I was like, where can we hear this music? Like, what's going on with this? And then you were just kind of like, it weren't in the place. You're like, well, I'm kind of getting it going again or whatever. Flash forward to, I'm looking at my Spotify just so that I can get her song queued up because I want to play one of her new songs. I'm like, dude, you have 20,000 listeners on Spotify. Like, woo, this is so great. So seriously, congratulations on that, because that's huge. That's everything. That's like, you have to just get to like that. You have to get all the way up there, which is just like the beginning before then you can really like be getting your music out there and be getting heard and everything. So that's so exciting. I'll just tell you all, I imagine some of your people are watching this, but if you don't know Rosa, she has this like amazing voice, and she's really talented with the piano and the guitar and as a songwriter. But my favorite thing about you is the way that you perform. Like, it just grabs you. Like, she smiles, and so that's not something I do at all when I perform. Like, it's just part of her. Like, she smiles the whole time that she's playing, and it just pulls you in, and you're just like having this whole experience with her, just because of that. And so anyway, I love it. I love seeing you perform. And when I started seeing you performing then at the piano bar, and I was like, oh, this is so exciting, and I get to experience all of this. And then my sister was with me one of the times, and you look like you could be in our family. Like, I was telling her today, I'm like, remember Rosa? I'm like, she totally looks like she's one of us. And so anyway, then my sister and I were coming to see some of your shows. And so anyway, in a little bit, we will I'll play one of your songs. And so the new listeners here can get a sound of your music. But so me saying all of that stuff, I would love to ask you about your journey with music, like how and when you started, and then you can just kind of tell us about that, as how that feels natural for you.
Yeah. Well, thank you, darling, for having me. It's amazing. Yeah, I mean, I think I could just launch into it and say that I started playing at a really young age, and started playing piano, or started singing. Like, my parents were, not musicians, not professional musicians, but they had like, musical inclinations. So I would sing from a young age and learned like harmonies and rounds and stuff like that. And but it wasn't a clear early like what would you call it? Like something that you wouldn't even question. It was something that was more, it wasn't in my wheelhouse as far as people that I, in my immediate family, weren't musicians. It was more intellectual. It was kind of more like, you know, there were people playing music and beautiful music, but it wasn't like people actually doing it for a living. There was, I had an uncle, a very beloved uncle who was a performer, not a musician. Like that was kind of the closest, you know, well, one uncle who's a jazz musician, another uncle who's an actor, and you know, so that it was there in the early days, but it took me a little while to kind of figure out that I always played piano. I started with the piano, and I knew that it was, you know, I knew that music was it tapped into me on a deepest level, deeper than anything that I knew when I, you know, from a young age. But I didn't really know that that was what I was going to do. It wasn't totally clear. So it took a little while. And then I started to sing a little bit more. I like played piano. I took classical piano lessons, and then I started to learn guitar and learned chords on the guitar on my own, kind of self-taught. And then I got really into electronic music, Portishead, and I was really into electronic music. And then, yeah, I kind of I grew up in upstate New York, in Ithaca, New York, and then I moved to Boston for a brief period of time, was like answered an ad in the Boston Phoenix, which is like they had a musicians wanted ad section. And I started to sing, and there was like this dude who was like electronic, you know, trip hop was what the genre was, trip hop.
I remember.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so then we met, and he was an architect by day, and then like he was creating all this music on his own. Like his passion was actually music. And we started to do some things together, and he had a little record deal out of a little label in Seattle. I think it was based out of, and I started to sing with him, and he had some things going on, like I don't know, we're on a podcast. I could tell you the whole story or cut it short, but
you know, it's just me wanting to know. So you can tell me the story like as much as like it feels fun, you know, for you to tell me.
I could say it really fast.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah, say it. Listen, we can talk about this story for as long as we want to. Like,
well, yeah, it's just wild.
It's boring
wild to me, because I look back on it and it's kind of wild to me, you know, like, yeah, I was 22 or 21 or 22, and like all of a sudden answered this call, was like doing some music with this guy, and he had this band, and then was diagnosed with a brain tumor, but it was non-metastatic, so it wasn't cancer, but it was in a place in his, like, lodged close enough to his optical nerve that the doctors didn't feel like they could operate on it with, you know, it was too close. The possibility was that he would lose his eyesight, so they decided because it was non-metastatic, he would have to go onto chemotherapy just to keep the tumor from growing. And then he didn't respond well to the chemotherapy. And he went through some really hard times in his life at the same exact time, and he wound up committing suicide. So like that was the first experience I had in a band. Like straight up band. And that was pretty intense. So and then I was living in Boston, and I was kind of, you know, already I'm 42 years old. I'll just say it right now. I'm 42 years old. So 20 years ago, it's about to be 20 years ago. That was a very crazy, crazy time. The right around there, the 9/11, moment happened, and just the general vibe was like, what is going on in this world? And I was living in Boston, and this guy, and he committed suicide, who I was playing with, and then I felt like something is off. I feel like I was meeting all these Indian and Pakistani people in Boston, and I was feeling really drawn spiritually or just emotionally, physically to the music of that I was hearing. And then I wound up like I was still hadn't finished college. So I enrolled in an undergraduate program that was a kind of international program that had an opportunity for students to go to India. So I went to India. So I was 22 and I went to India, and I was, I don't know. It wasn't a spiritual thing. It wasn't like I was looking for, it was mostly musical, actually. And then also kind of an idea to just experience another reality, like another,
That is a totally different reality too.
That's a completely different reality.
Yeah.
Yeah. Little did I know. Yeah.
So did you do any music there?
Yes, I did. I mean, I learned, I was taking tabla lessons, the two drums, and that was really the most that was the closest to Indian classical music that I got. However, it's like women don't actually play tabla in Indian classical music. That's actually a man's instrument. However,
all over the place.
Yeah, the women play a different one. The women play the clay pot traditionally in Indian classical music. But
what is that? What is that? Like only women, you guys can only play this one, and no, you can't play that one. There's all this like women can't play the didgeridoo. Women can't. Well, women weren't supposed to be singing or playing music at all, right? At some point, and then the drums. Where back in the day, it was women. There were women were leading ceremony, all of this, and then it was like in so many of these cultures for a long time, women weren't even allowed to touch the drum. Women weren't allowed to do meditation. When women weren't allowed to talk to God. Women, what the fuck?
Yeah, things seem to have gotten a bit confused.
They got confused. They've gotten a bit better. They've gotten a bit better in this time. For us, I mean, we live all the way here on the West Coast. And so, we're as far west. That's what I say sometimes anyway, that's a whole other story, but it's like, we really,
kind of a frontier, like the most current frontier, like moving through, so many different cultures, something about like this country or this continent, and starts on the East Coast, at least as far as European or all of these other, we're not even talking about native people of this land. So
right.
Yeah. Like, yeah.
What would you say? Would you say that voice is your main instrument?
Well, yeah, I think now I'm learning in the last, it's taken a while. It's taken a long while. Partly because I was most drawn always to American blues music, like North American blues music. And I think the Qawwali, like what I really figured out after being drawn to India and Indian music I was actually really, really drawn to the Qawwali music, which is northern India, like this very, calling, it's like calling out to, whatever is you believe is God, goddess, or everything, all that is. And so the blues feels like that to me, the North American, blues music. And then I have always also grew up in Ithaca, New York, and had like a really strong consciousness about, I don't exactly know how it pans out. I felt very conscious of the fact that I was white, and didn't actually feel so. I had a hard time with the lineage of, when you start to learn about the history of our human species, and struggled a little bit with being white, honestly. And then being drawn to music that was being made by, Black people in this country, and had a really high, just super awareness about it. And at the same time, couldn't really it couldn't really, it's just something that's in my soul. So
and it's coming through you.
So I guess and that was what was amazing about that. You mentioned the piano bar earlier. Like we met, and that was a place that was around, that gave a lot of musicians the opportunity to play.
It's true.
And just be ourselves, and learn, and take that chance to just let whatever really comes through your soul, just let it be. And that really helped me to understand that what was coming through me was like way beyond, my voice is, or our voice, whatever. It's way beyond like any kind of appearance or, detail. In some way, it's like it comes through us.
Of course.
You just let it come through. You don't have to really explain it.
I think it's important, being white myself and having, these kinds of feelings about lots of things. I think it's important to acknowledge that. And I think it's important to share it, and it's one thing to be trying to emulate and trying to be something and trying to take something from that belongs to like some other people. And maybe do that in the wrong way. But then there's also music coming through you. There's messages and energy and all of that coming through you. And I think anyone that is in a place and maybe has a right to question, they can see that it's real. It's very real, what is that comes from you. And you're not an inauthentic person, like in any way. And you're very humble about your music. And and it's also cool. Awesome. Like it's really,
it was cool to also like have come from being in India, and like at that point was so interested. I was like, I really was into electronic music. It was like something that was like, I loved the heartbeat of it. I loved dancing. I loved like the kind of trance of it all. And then it was amazing to come from India. And then I was living in Northern California for a couple of years and, you know, like out in the middle in the country, and like started listening to rock and roll music again. You know, like I hadn't really listened to like good rock and roll for a while. You know, there was something that was great to be reminded of that tradition. Like, you know, you can like I don't know. It can be like raw and fun and soulful and, you know, and like a tribute to every form of music that's come before, and kind of make a blend of it all. You know, like it was liberating. It was a good reminder. And it can be like with your friends who you love. You know, you make some music with like your favorite people. And
yeah, that's something that we don't do like really easy as a culture. Like in this culture here, in this white culture here, that's not, I never had any friends that played music growing up. I played the flute. I was the only one. And then my flute teacher like played saxophone and he played flute. And then we would play together. There was like a ska band at my high school. And then there was like a ska band at like the other high school. And that was the first time I'd ever seen any like, you know, live music. Not that I'd seen live music before, but you know, at your age. And you guys are in high school and you're going to see people that, you know, like on stage and mosh pit and all that stuff. But that was, you know, and that was it for me. And then I came to LA and I had some weird things happen, like with my flute teacher and all of that. And I just kind of didn't want to have anything to do with music. And so I was taking this break and I came to LA. Just a side note, I came to LA to study genetics. I did not know what Hollywood was. I had no idea that people come here to be famous. I never knew any. I knew my cousin was an actor. I never knew any actors. You know, I lived in Santa Cruz. It was a bit smaller than it is now, but still, I never watched TV. I didn't watch. Yeah, I was super interested in when I started to learn about genetics, you know, because I always thought for sure that I was going to play music. Whenever it was that I had that idea, and then I decided that I wanted to play the flute, I just kind of like knew that was the instrument I was going to play as soon as I was going to be able to play. And then my dad is just, you know, my biggest fan always and forever. And my dad's like, anytime you would pick up anything that you would want to do, my dad's like, you're going to be the best at that. You're going to be like this famous, like you're going to, you know, be this, you know, flute player and everything. And so I was like, okay. I took it on that way. And I just needed to stop doing that. And I never really picked that up as my main instrument again. But so then for me coming to LA, I mean, when I was like working at a Noah's Bagels in Hollywood or something, or West Hollywood, I just thought Hollywood was like some like dirty kind of seedy city. I didn't really know that that's where people came to like be famous. Really, it's like people come here whether they're artistic or not, or whether they're talented or not. They come here, you know, with this like dream of doing that. But because it is this place, this place is full of the most creative people. Amazing people are here. The people who don't live here, you know, people that are listening, you guys don't live in Los Angeles. There's always this idea, or people that are first moving here, that they think that everything is all this stuff that you see on the surface. And there is that, absolutely. There's all this fake and there's all of this stuff that's on the surface. But once you live here and you sink into this place and you like find your people, there's an amazing amount of creativity that's here. Like people are coming here to give up everything and like go for their dream and be creative and like really express this thing that they feel like they need to express, that they can't do it in a smaller town or even just the town that they're coming from. Like this really is a place for people to be free, for people to be free sexually, for people to be whoever they want to, even if it's different than who you were here 5 years ago. I mean, this place really is amazing for that. But so I came here and everybody played guitar. And I always loved guitar, but I was playing the flute, so I never thought I would play that. And it was just kind of funny because, of course, I was waiting tables at a restaurant, and there was a guy who was older than me, and he was my manager, and he kept trying to hang out, and he came over with his guitar, and I was like, whoa, I want to learn how to play guitar. So anyway, I don't even know like how I got into that whole thing, but LA.
Yeah.
So well, and just to say like more about my story, that's actually, I started writing music at some point when I was here, and then had the opportunity to just kind of like try it out. I mean, I was totally afraid. I was super embarrassed. I was really, really humiliated to sing in front of anyone. So it took me until I was like almost 30 before anybody ever heard me sing. And
me too. Me too. Yeah, totally. Me too.
The thing I love about you is your ability to hear harmony, the way that you hear it, like, because I don't have that gift. And so that's why I'm in school and I'm studying all this stuff right now, so I can at least mathematically figure it out. But I'm a soprano. I just like hear it on the top. And, if Rosa would be in the audience when I was playing, and it didn't matter if she knew the song or not, she would be singing harmony with me. And like, what a beautiful experience. But then that's how I've seen you perform with your cousin. I've seen you obviously sing. I've seen you sing with like an old partner of yours like a long time ago. And then recently I actually, because I already knew that she could sing with me, and I was doing all these sound baths in LA, and I was putting together groups of people and women, that we could all sing together. And so then that was like one of the last live shows that I played. We were just talking about it. It was like a year ago. So we did like a new moon show. It was all women. So it just kind of ended up being Women's Circle. And like we got together like a day before or something and went over some songs. But like that's really such a gift of yours, just to sing like that. So I had no idea that you hadn't sang out in front of people until you were almost 30. And I'm like, when did I meet you? Because it was only right around that time.
Well, I was always singing, and I have to, like, I think that my parents were, even though they weren't professional musicians, still like we would be singing, we would always, my parents divorced when I was 6. But, and so in their own ways, and like, throughout, they both were musical in certain sense of like, they would sing together, and then we would sing harmonies. Like I learned how to sing harmony, and like in a really kind of bluegrass or rounds, like old rounds we would sing. So that started at a young age, and I'm really grateful for that because it kind of comes naturally, and I love it so much. It's one of my favorite things to sing harmony. It's such a amazing, beautiful sensation and like ability that we have as humans to sing like that, harmony with each other. And it's always like kind of miraculous to me. Like if I go to a recording session and sing harmony on a track, like you start to play and sing, and it's just like, and it's just amazing that our bodies can even do that, and it's like every time I'm blown away by it. I never take it for granted. It's something that's just like magical to me that we can do that.
It's
like
so magical.
Yeah.
I wish we were taught, and I wish we were, also, I do martial arts. And so that's just been such a part of my developmental process in life, is that I did martial arts and music, and I started them. I think I started martial arts when I was in 2nd grade, and I started playing music when I was in 4th grade, aside from just singing Somewhere Over the Rainbow for my mom. And with the two of those, like I really learned how to use my instrument, but that's why I'm finally taking voice now. I actually still really never was taught like how to use this. And the thing is that all of this is an instrument for all of us. It's our temple. It's our instrument. Like we can really use this for so many different types of things. Like we can channel, telepathy already exists. We can harmonize. And so, as you've done a ton too, I'm sure, just like performing on your own, that's one thing. And actually, you know, as much as I love to play with other people, sometimes my favorite experience of my favorite artists is them playing on their own. But when, and maybe this will kind of, you know, go into like why we're calling this episode Medicinal Music. When I started incorporating the spiritual aspects, like really incorporating the spiritual aspects into my shows and having them be, whether it's a women's circle or new moon ceremony or sound bath or whatever, the thing that was really important to me that I really, really wanted was the harmony, because there's something that happens when you hear the two voices, and especially there's specific things that can happen if you're singing thirds or fifths or you know, other things. You can go into specific places with those. But I'm like, if people have their eyes closed and you have one voice and then you bring in this other voice, it like opens worlds up. It opens things. It opens things inside of you. It opens things around you. So anyway, I have this experience. It's giving me chills right now just to talk about it. I have this experience every time I'm hearing you sing, because there's always like harmony that's incorporated with what you're doing. And so
it's fun singing alone, do you mean?
No, I mean, I have heard you do a lot of harmony. I've heard you like, so every time, especially back in the day of, I didn't really know you when Cranes was going on, but you know, there's just kind of like some collections of people that were performing in some of these like local places in Hollywood. And then everybody kind of moved over to the piano bar, and our friend, Edward Matusi just, you know, kept the family going. And so, but Rosa would just jump up with everyone, just play with everyone. There's like different girls that you're playing with, like different people that are playing with you, but like you're with Ed, like you were always there to just be able to like sing harmony with everyone. And so anyway, you don't necessarily know that that's my experience of you, but that's totally like my experience of you, is like bringing this magical music is magic anyway, right? But you're bringing like this magical component to the music that's already there.
Yeah, which is, it's such a beautiful experience and learning experience. And you know, I think at that point when you realize you kind of have to surrender at that moment, when you've kind of found and maybe gone through like a whole bunch of trials and maybe some confusion, you know. It's like when you realize, like, you know what, I made it to this place where there are all these beautiful people and I can sing with them and they'd like me to sing with them, and you know, that's when you surrender, I think. And so grateful to be able to do it. And you know, never.
What I was gonna say is it's also healing for the self, like this instrument.
And that's what I was gonna say to you, because like I think that partly what comes through to me, and especially we met around the time when this started to happen for me, where I surrendered, right? You know, like okay, I'm gonna do this because my soul is leading me to do this. And then what would happen was I would get so full of joy, you know, playing or singing or performing, you know, like literally like so full. It's the happiest that I am is in those moments, like singing with people or singing or like creating, like that part. That is real. That is like extreme joy, you know, and it's joy coming from a lot of confusion and a lot of like, you know.
Well, this is why you're smiling when you're playing. But you
yeah,
know,
that's what I'm saying, because it's such a relief. I'm like, oh God.
You know,
like,
it's God source energy, you know, and it's goddess source energy, it's source energy. It's just, you know, I'm just using the terminologies so people know what that is, because
it's
so it's really, you channel
it's joy. It's relief also. It's relief. It's like, I can actually, this is the way to be, you know, with my breath and my energy and my whole being. This is how this, I mean, it's elation beyond elation. Like yeah, you know,
I get it.
And you can, it took a while to kind of move past the sheer like terror of standing up on a stage and having a whole bunch of people like looking at you while you're, you know, trying to deliver a thing that you don't even really know what it is. And, you know, it's very confusing and uncomfortable at first. It's very wild. And then, you know, if you keep doing it, yeah. I think I'm grateful. And that's what's so hard and bizarre about these times right now. Like, you know, not playing live shows. So it's so very much. Yeah. It's the most potent in those moments.
Right. Especially when everybody's together in the room together.
Yeah.
You know, and that's one thing too. I think that's a reason too why I've just kind of been, you know, got the message, like felt called to have my friends that are musicians here and just to talk about this, because there's a couple things that are happening, right? You take artists and you restrict them and you resist them, and it's like, you know, water will boil and all of this, you know, it's like I'm starting to get this thing now where I'm like, oh, I just want to go out. Like, we can go to the restaurant, but I'm just like, I want to, like, my energy just kind of wants to like explode out like that. And so there is music that is being created right now. People are still recording, putting things out. I put an album out last summer. You've released a couple songs. You have an album that's coming. You performed yesterday, and I want to talk about your live performance yesterday. I had a friend on the show just a couple weeks ago, David Drake, and he recorded a whole album during all of this and put it out. And so the things that I am hearing from people are great. Like, what is coming out of people is really awesome. And there's also the time to work on some things that maybe because of like all the hustle that's normally happening is a bit less. But yeah, of course, like, it's super frustrating. But then there's this other thing where technology, almost like we're forced to be like, okay, I mean, I'm like, I've done some performing at the studio that, you know, one of my bandmates owns that studio, but I can't just go and perform in there whenever I want to. And I have to like deal with everyone else. And so I'm trying to set up recording studio in my own house and how to do live and create live spaces inside of here. And like I said, I'm getting a green screen and I'm getting all these colored lights, and I've seen other people doing some of this stuff. And it's forcing education with all of the new technology that's out. There are all kinds of different platforms to use. And because we need to, there's the energy that's moving through that wants to come out. But there is a thing where you're not performing for like a group of people. Even if they're there and they're watching you, you can't see them and feel them in the same way that is so part of the experience. You know, when somebody's performing, it's not just that they're performing, like, they're having an experience with you. They're having an experience with the audience at the same time. And all the energy that's in the room has everything to do with that performer enjoying their experience or having a good show or not. Like, it's all the people that are in that space together at the same time. And so it is hard. It is hard for people, for all kinds of reasons. Like financially, this is the way that a lot of musicians survive. This is the way that you meet, like you get your music out there, is playing live shows. I mean, all the things that I do are like how I get business. Like all of the in-person events that I do, it's not really the stuff that I do online, it's the stuff that I do in person. So, how was your show yesterday?
It was cool. I chose to drive to Temecula from Joshua Tree to go to David, is the name of the man who like has this, company that is making these live shows, and he's a super awesome human being. And he he has it all, he has everything set up in his place. So I chose to go and drive there because I don't have the gear right now, like to really I haven't invested the time really or energy to really figure it out, because it isn't as appealing to me to just play by myself onto a computer, so I opted to go to his place, and that meant that he was there and his wife was there and his father and partner were there, and we were all socially distanced, and everything was up to par on the standards. And there was like a little actual audience there, and I knew that he was on top of the technical side of things, so that could allow me to just relax and play. So it was cool, and I couldn't see any of the comments that were coming in during the live stream. He was kind of fielding them to me in between songs. So it was interesting. It was like nothing I've ever done before, but it was fun. And it was good that there were actually a couple people there. But afterwards, it was like he was kind of, I think, gently encouraging me to consider this as a viable way for us to be performing. Like even after live venues start up again, you can still actually dial this experience in and do and make and play shows and broadcast them like all over the globe, all over the planet.
Yeah.
And it's not actually that hard. It's only like a matter of having a certain kind of setup with gear. And so yeah, it's good. It's interesting. Also interesting to consider when things start like opening up again, where do we really want to perform, and how do we really want to perform as artists? Like if we can do this on our own and broadcast ourselves, like we can actually create our own venues. Like, what do we really want to create? We don't, if we're not like wanting to like play in some bar somewhere, we could actually like create a venue, and it could be online largely, and then you like have some people there in the audience, and then you have like a worldwide audience at the same time. So it's
that's what's cool. It's like the like the wild wild west. There's all this opportunity to
totally. It is a bit of a wild wild west.
I mean, actually, like I shouldn't be like, that's just like this old saying, but it wasn't just wide open with nobody around. It was actually people living there. But that is what's cool, is that there is an opportunity for a lot of learning and a lot of dialing things in, getting clear on what kind of equipment. I mean, that's always been a thing for me, and that's a thing for musicians, right? So if you're choosing to not live like the 9-to-5 slave job, which like most of us are choosing to not do that, you're not making that kind of money either. So and then there used to be like waitressing and bartending where you could just, especially in a place like Los Angeles, I mean, that's what everybody does, is you're just doing that full time and trying to make it and go out and play after. That is just like totally not the same anymore. But that's the thing. It's like I've always struggled with having all the kind of equipment that I need. To this day, I still don't have any kind of pedal board. Like I've just really stuck acoustic and I don't have a pedal board. And I finally have an amp, but even I was just saying, before, I'm like, everything here is just like makeshift. It's amazing that I make these things happen, but I have an amp, an acoustic amp here that I use in this everything that's like plugged in, and my an old guitar player friend of mine had given this to me, and then another old guitar player friend of mine all have given me this mic stand, and this like super old mic, and and I have and I took a recording arts class this past semester, and I just kind of learning how to like plug all the things in to just like make it work. But then you got to know all the right apps, because something I was trying to do like last year, the year before, June and I were going on like Facebook and doing live rituals. We would just do kind of the thing that we would do in Women's Circle. We'd just do it in my house, and we would light candles and pull cards and play music. But the Zoom, even though it's better now, it was horrible. It was so horrible that when we would start to actually play music together, which would kind of be like the whole point, right? Trying to offer all this other stuff is like the reason for the meditation. It's the reason, for what you've journaled and what you're letting go of and all of that. We do all of that so that then when we finally close our eyes and listen to the music, and then we can, go into these deeper places, it would just cut out. It would just cut in and out. You just couldn't hear the drum or the guitar or like the two voices. It just was horrible. And I did it we were probably doing it for like a year. And at some point I was like, okay, this has to stop. Like, it's great. It's fun to be doing it, but like, I don't know how, to have so there's a lot of learning and there's a lot of learning that has to happen. And there's a lot of getting the right equipment. But it is easier, and it's just getting easier and easier. And I think all of the new apps make it like easier and easier. And Twitch is supposed to be a really good place for sound because it's that video gaming app. And they need to have like the really good sounds, like while I guess they like watch, they play it. I actually grew up playing a lot of video games, but I haven't been playing any games on the Twitch app. But actually this is streaming live on Twitch right now. But a lot of DJs are doing some things there, and musicians are doing some things there where you can like have a green screen and you can actually set up this kind of like interesting looking space. And then it has really good sound, and there's all this like community stuff that's going on at the same time. Like while you're live, everyone's kind of chatting with each other. So, I'm Cal Arts is doing some things there where like some of their classes, like they're doing like on Twitch, or some of the way that you're going to like join and see what's going on tonight is you're watching it, like on the Twitch app. And so, anyway,
wild. So
it is wild. Okay, so you were in India, and then you came back, and you were listening to all this rock and roll, and you're just kind of like letting it come out of you, because at some point you don't have any other choice. And then what happened?
Oh man.
How did you find yourself out? Like in the, when I met you? Like, how did you find your way down here?
Well, I have very beloved family in Los Angeles. And I always was feeling kind of drawn here. And I came and I just felt like I should try doing music. Like a couple of things happened in my life. And I after being in India and then after being in Northern California for a little while, I just felt like I should try it. And then I like through my family met like started singing backup in a band with a neighbor down the street, and who was very generous and supportive, and just kind of like went from there, like singing backup, met an amazing woman and who started singing the band too. And, you know, it just kind of like happened very beautifully, kind of generously, you know, one person, and I learned more along the way. And then yeah, just kept realizing and opening up to like the concept of songwriting, and then like playing those songs on a stage. That wasn't always my whole destination. I didn't really totally know that was what I wanted to do. But then when I did it, felt good, felt right, felt kind of unstoppable, you know, in the sense of you know, yeah. And then I met more people, like just kind of once I realized that, or once I started to really give myself over to that, kind of learned through relationships with people and connections with people, just started to learn more and more. And yeah.
And so then the past couple of years, I know that you've been spending a ton of time out in Joshua Tree. Actually, your first album that I bought from you, there was maybe like 5 or 6 songs on it or something, and maybe it was called Pleasant Road.
Yeah, Pleasant Road. Yeah.
Yeah, I loved that, and that was, and I think you had recorded that out in Joshua Tree. But totally. Then, you know, and just meeting Brian, like, you know, my tarot card teacher, like my first spiritual teacher ever, he actually lives out in Joshua Tree now. And so when we like re-ran into each other a couple years ago or so, and we're talking about Joshua Tree, and then anyway, I think she was like, there's this guy that I met and like you would be into him, and I was like, oh, that's so funny because that's totally my teacher. So anyway, it's a magical place, such a magical place, and I was really wanting to like live out there myself a couple years ago. And so I know that like during all of this, like you've been spending a lot of time out there, and like you just said, are you out there now? Did you come in and then go back out there?
Yeah, I was out here, and then now I'm actually in Wonder Valley, which is like technically 29 Palms. I'm I'm even a little deeper into the desert at the moment. Yeah. But, and because it's wild in Joshua Tree right now, it's like there's tons of people coming out to the desert right now. Like I think during this pandemic, people are leaving, you know, it's like it's wild, the number of people that are out, in especially the Joshua Tree zone, especially on the weekends and just in general, you know. And then people, it's kind of like the biggest you know, Airbnb in Joshua Tree is huge. It's I think probably like the number one source of income out here.
It's super cool because everybody's got like all these trailers and like old vans and buses and everything that they convert into these cool places that you can stay. And then there's, you know, like a fire pit, maybe there's a pool, you know, there's all kinds of things. But people, it's very Burning Man out there. People are super creative, tons of music, tons of art, and there's a lot of freedom out there just because like it's hot. People are just living, you know, out in the desert. Not everyone wants to be. So.
Now, unfortunately, people are selling their houses because the real estate has gotten so inflated. People who are actually the artists that live out here who might be renting are getting displaced because the owners of the houses are selling the houses. So it's actually kind of a bit of a not the best scene for the local people out here who aren't homeowners, you know, like so it's a bit of a toss-up. It's not the best for the locals.
That's too bad.
That's also kind of been, you know, It's not a new thing. I feel like it's just gotten like extremely inflated during this pandemic because there are people, because the real estate market's gone sky high out here.
Yeah, weird.
So people can sell a house and make a ton of money, and yeah, but there are still the same beautiful people out here, and more people coming in and making amazing art. It's not just business. So it is true. And I realized like recently, like I've written so many songs out here in the desert. It actually blows my mind. Like from that Dusty Road record that you mentioned, or little EP, like I've written so many songs out here in the desert and in the houses that I've rented from the Sibleys, the family that owns the Palms restaurant and venue, which is right now like not open, but they're starting to open back up. But I've met them 11 years ago, and they've opened their homes to me out here in the desert, and I've written like tons of songs out here in the desert. So yeah,
it's awesome.
it is a wonderful place to come to open up to the muses, for sure.
Well, it's quiet out there. I remember one of the first times I was out there, and maybe it was like the second time I was out there with this one particular partner, and we first got there and he was like, listen to how loud your ears are ringing, because you
can hear the blood in your veins moving.
It's so silent out there, and then coming from the city, you don't realize because you're used to it, and so there's just so much electromagnetic pollution, and there's like really from the sounds of everything to your neighbors to I don't have a TV, but everyone around me like has a TV and a computer, and I'm in a better spot than I was like a year ago, and it was just a nightmare. Like I couldn't sleep. And anyway, I was out there with a partner, and he's like, just listen to your ears, and you could like almost feel how loud they were ringing, and within a day or two it died out, and you can hear the silence. And that's a big thing for me for being able to write music, is I actually need to have silence so I can hear.
Yeah.
And it's probably what a lot of it is. Plus you just can really feel like you're in nature out there. And that is one of the things that's cool about this pandemic situation. I mean, it's kind of annoying that everywhere you want to go out in nature, there's a ton of people. But at the same time, it's really cool that that's the experience that people are having, where they're going back out to nature because they don't have anything else to do. Yeah. That's not necessarily the norm for everyone. So you're going out to these places and you're seeing a bunch of city people, and you're like, wow, you guys look like you've never been out in nature. But it's so good for everyone. There's as tough of a time as this is in all the different ways, there's also like a bunch of really cool opportunities and cool things that people are getting to experience with themselves, or
totally.
It's going to have a big change for sure. Like who knows what, there's so many things going on at once, but it's all part of it. Just people being in nature is part of it. People having that break where everybody wasn't going to their slave jobs every day is part of it. I think the thing that's going on with the artists, and kind of like the kind of restriction that's going on and the not being able to do, I think that the creativity just will explode out of it, like at some point. Like I said, I mean, it is already, like there's a lot of creativity that's coming out already. So it's just, this is the ride we're on anyway. So it's like, you might as well be like, well, that's interesting, and like this is cool, and now we get to.
Yeah, it seems like there's something about us being able to give ourselves the space to create what we really feel like creating without just a pressure to conform to a system that is already in place. Like if it's a system of entertainment, or expectation, like what we're supposed to be like giving from ourselves. It's an interesting moment. I actually feel like I've heard from so many dear friends of mine who are creative people, who are artists, and they're not creating like that much right now. It's been like a moment of, or maybe they are, but in a different way. You know, it's like a moment of I don't know, tenderness. Maybe like imagine, you know, like, and I even wonder this for myself too. I'm like, but if I really were to, you know, create, you know, it's like there's endlessness in this beautiful pondering of our creative energy and beings. You know, it's like it feels kind of nice to not have to fit it into some, I don't know, framework.
I hear you.
For a moment.
Yeah.
Or forever more. I'm not saying it the best way. It's hard for me to find words for it. I'm not missing playing in bars. That's one way to put it. I'm not like in a dusty, I mean, I don't know. I'm not missing it so much as I love and miss people. Like, can we figure out how to do this in another way? Make it be healthy, beautiful, open to everyone.
Yeah.
Outside.
Like,
yeah. Children, babies, like everyone involved. Why is it? Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. That's funny. I didn't plan to say that. Not like I planned to say anything tonight, but that wasn't something I was thinking about. But really, you know, like, yeah.
Yeah. It's, you know, we were forced on a pause, and in ways, and then that type of pause has changed, you know, for some people. They're not in that anymore, and they're, you know, fully working in some other type of environment. It is stressful. And then there's other people who aren't able to do, like, I'm not able to do all the things that I was doing. And in the summer, it was actually really great because I was like, I couldn't even do my podcast. Like, I couldn't get the internet. I tried to do it on a different platform. I tried to do it on Instagram. It's just like, I couldn't get a clear connection. I just couldn't do it. And so I was just like forced on a break. And, and then, you know, then that's when the new program started running. Right. And within that, though, you know, it's like your free thinkers and your artists, and there are all these ones that are kind of like floating in the in-between anyway. And so there's a lot of this trying to figure out where we are, how things are going to be. And then we get to the point where we realize, oh, well, we can actually like create things to be differently, actually.
Yeah.
Everything has to be different anyway. But the being outside, I think, is a really cool idea. It's been really cool for all of these restaurants that are never allowed to have outside patio seating because they can't have the permit. But now, festivals and everything outside. Yes. So something that I want to do here is play one of your songs. Okay. So I was listening to, but I just made like a little playlist so that I could find it really easy. I made that's not what I'm trying to say. Yes, I made a playlist. I'm making a playlist for this podcast for all of the musicians that are on the podcast so that like anyone can go listen to this playlist, and I'll put everybody's songs on there. So anyway, I started that tonight because of you, but I'm like, okay, so let's listen to one of Rosa's new songs. And so I have this song called Sing Sweetly, and I put it on repeat for, you know, like for the like half hour, you know, before like we linked on here. And and it's beautiful. So I'm gonna play it. We're just gonna be here and we're gonna listen to it with everyone, and I'm just gonna hold this up so we can hear it. You know, she's on Spotify. It's Rosa Pullman, but we're all just going to listen to this. This is one of her new releases. She does have a new record coming out very soon. And you know, and that's always it's just a big accomplishment. You know, it's creating an album. It's such a huge production, just from having the material to then, you know, all the being able to record it and then getting it together and then getting it out. It's just, you know, so it's really I'm excited for you. And then let's listen to Sing Sweetly.
Okay.
Here we go.
Sing sweetly, sing sweet to me, and I'll sing sweet too. I'll sing sweet to you, 'cause I have seen your face and I know where you've been. And even if you don't know it now, someday we'll meet again. And then scatter to the ether. Be sweet to me, and I'll be sweet too. I'll be sweet to you. 'Cause jasmine's on the vine and diamonds take their time, and even in the darkest night, somewhere the sun still shines, and the stars all align, and we give it another try, and then scatter to the ether.
So beautiful. I love it so much. I hope that the sound came through well for everyone, but either way, you can go and check that out. It's on Spotify right now. I really loved it. Like, I mean, I was just putting on, you know, I'm like, oh, I'm just listening to, you know, like her new release. And then I'm like, oh man, what are you singing about? Oh, it's just so, I mean, I know what you're singing about, but that's what I was like, oh wow, what is this song about? Like, I just so speaks to me. I could just, you know, feel it. That's really such a beautiful love song. So
yeah, and it's kind of like the record that is coming out, and the plan is that it will be available on April 9th. And it's through a new record label called Electrosound Recordings. And it was, recorded and produced and made with like just some beloved friends and family. So it's just a real labor of love. And it's, songs from the last like year and a half of my particular life. And then we started recording it, I think about a year ago. And yeah, it's just it's kind of a treasure, in that way. It's a beautiful collaboration.
Well, it sounds beautiful. I can't wait to hear all of it.
Yeah. Well, there'll be one more.
What?
Thank you. Yeah. There'll be one more song coming next month. And then the full record in April.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how can everybody find you? Do you have an email list? Are you mostly on Facebook or Instagram?
I'm really
not a big social media person, but
no, I have not been a big social media person. Yeah, mostly like kind of Facebook and Instagram at the moment. And then Electrosound
situation.
Huh?
I said I'm gonna help her with that email list.
Okay, help me out, sister.
Yeah, serious.
Yeah.
Your fans, they want to be connected to you. They do. And this is the thing that is really cool about it's been going on for a little while anyway, but for sure right now it's the only way that people are able to connect is through these external sources, because we can't be together in person, and so even if it's your favorite artist, you can't travel and go hear them play. So you need to find out what platforms they're on. You need to get on their email list. So that you can hear them if they're going to play live on Instagram or Facebook or, any of the other things. So,
Yes. Rosa Pullman on Instagram. And then on Facebook, there's a Rosa Pullman artist page, and there's also my personal page. And my middle name is Vigiani, Viggiani. That's my personal page on Facebook, is Rosa Vigiani Pullman.
And what I'll do is I'll get all these links and I'll hyperlink them, and I'll put them, I'll just put them wherever the video is. So it's here on YouTube. If you all are watching on YouTube, definitely please subscribe. The more action that we get on this, the more people that are able to see it. And thank you for joining me.
Love.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's really so good to see you, and I want to come out and see you in the desert. I keep saying it.
Do.
But I do. I really want to. And
out here,
you're just like the perfect person to be out there with. Like, Joshua Tree is such a magical place, and it's just also one of those things where it's very specific also too. It's just like, there's specific people that you will like find there, be drawn there to, like, with. And anyway, I'd love to come out there.
Please do.
Yeah.
Please do.
Yeah, I will. I'm like, I got Saturdays off. I'm going to come out there. One of these Saturdays. Here. Yeah. So, so much love to you. I just, I've already said it anyway. I love your music, and I'm so excited that you have like 20, 30,000 listeners already on Spotify. So you guys go check her out. And if you're following me on social media, I'm Jaime Black Music on Instagram, on Facebook.
Jaime with the I.
The Jaime. And I will, and this podcast is called the Silverlake Priestess Podcast, and all the live stuff has been here on YouTube, and anyway, all the podcasts will eventually like be out on iTunes and Spotify and all of that, but I will definitely post the link for your new music when it is out, and I'll share it with all my people.
Nice. Beauty. Thanks,
yeah.
Mom.
Okay, well, so much love.
And it's my first podcast ever, so thanks.
Yes, you're welcome. It's, it's a new way.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Blessed be.